Hello and welcome to Comic Drake, where I talk about comic books. My name is Drake. This is going to be an interesting video because this is something that I've wanted to talk about for a long time, and there's no real way to script this out without it being way too complicated. I'm going to be talking about one of my biggest problems that I have with the comic book industry, and I have done a video in the past talking about multiple problems that I've had, but this is one that I don't see people talking about a whole lot, and I think it actually is one of the biggest reasons why the comic book industry is starting to fail more and more every single year, and it is a literal issue. I'm talking about single issues of comic books. And while we have a lot of ground to cover, I have done way more thinking about the subject than I probably should have. I have a lot of visual aids to go over, so I'm just gonna try to blurt this out as fast as I can without making it too complicated. Okay, so this is a comic that I bought today at my local comic shop. This is History of the Marvel Universe #2, and it retailed for $4.99. That is a small chunk of change, but when you buy as many comics as I do, it adds up a lot over time. And I really do think that this business model is incredibly outdated. This is the way the comics have always really came, and that's been going on for decades. It's a holdover from when comics were treated more like magazines. And magazines themselves really aren't something that we have these days. We've moved more towards online media where everything is more easily distributed, and then also print media as a whole is dying. So the problem that I have is that the single issues are pretty much only there because that's the way they've always been, and they're going to appeal to people who are already invested in this medium. They're just basically made for comic fans that already exist. This does not really attract new readers. That's why whenever I'm getting people into comics, I always give them these trade paperbacks. This is a book that is made up of multiple issues. So also an interesting fact is that trades end up being cheaper in the long run than all of the issues individually. So, like I said, this was $5.99. This is issues number 115 through 120 of Invincible. It retailed for $16.99. Just some basic math there is that if you bought 5 issues of this, it's going to end up being more expensive than just this. But also an interesting thing is that, yes, while sometimes you get little extras inside of these issues, you definitely get more inside of these. For example, I love that in the Invincible books, you see concept art. You see some sketches that the artist does at separate cons and stuff that you wouldn't normally get inside of it. You know, another problem that I have with single issues, they have ads, like, everywhere. I mean, I'm paying $5. Why are you just showering me in advertisements? At least when I buy a trade, that's not a problem. Now, even though I am going to be spending most of the video crapping on single issues, I do think that there are some valuable aspects. For example, I think one-shots are very cool. They're going to be self-contained stories, but that's generally not what you get in these books. These are generally part of a larger narrative. And also, I do think it's pretty interesting that you can release a comic book and you can get fan feedback and adjust accordingly whenever you're releasing on a month-by-month basis with these kind of spread out bits with issues. But at the same time though, we're moving towards a much more bingeable future, especially in the age of Netflix. So this is an indie company called TKO, and I think their business model is very interesting. They still release issues, but they sell them all in one chunk, kind of like a Netflix series. You can also get them in a trade, you can get them digitally. They want to make sure that you're getting their book in as many different formats as possible to reach the largest audience. I don't really know how this is going to pan out. I think we definitely need to see this adopted by a larger company for it to really get legs, but it's at least cool that the industry is starting to notice that issue by issue is going to be a problem, and at least somebody is willing to tackle it. Now, one of the other issues that I have with the comic industry is that you can pretty much only buy comic books at comic stores. Now, DC did try to do something interesting with these 100-page spectaculars. That was done at Walmart, of all places, and they weren't placed in very good locations. It didn't make a lot of sense, and I had a hard time actually finding these, but it was still cool to see that they're trying to do something unique. Another thing that's interesting is that this isn't just one issue inside of here. There are multiple stories contained within. And you know how much this cost? $4.99. This book, which contains multiple stories, is the same price as this book, which only has one story. There is a significant difference in the amount of content that you get for the exact same price. And also, not everybody has a local comic book store. At least everybody has a Walmart, no matter how much I hate them. Yes, Walmart really dropped the ball in getting this out there, but it just goes to show that distribution is a major problem. We can't just be having these things in niche stores and wonder why the industry is failing. And you know what else is $5.99? This big ass copy of Shonen Jump. Now, admittedly, they aren't printing these in English anymore, so this is actually from 2012. But if I were to just go into this, let's take a look at all of the stories that are contained within. This one book has Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, Bakuman, Nora, Toriko, Siren, and Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds all within one book for the same price as this one. Now, also, it is worth noting that, yes, the manga is going to be black and white. You do have full page color in this, which is going to end up being a bit of a price discrepancy, but this is still a much better value, especially because the chapters within aren't that far off from a standard issue of a comic. I think it would be really awesome if they tweaked the idea that they did with these 100-page spectaculars and instead made themed books that contained multiple issues. Maybe have a Batman book, which has Batman, Detective Comics, Nightwing, Batgirl, and contain that into one thing. You just buy that, people are going to buy it for the Batman, maybe they'll stick around for everything else, and you end up building a fan base for these other properties. A Superman book would make sense, a Magic book with like Swamp Thing, Constantine, Wonder Woman, a Justice League book, which may have like Flash. You could release like 4 or 5 titles every week, maybe once a month for each of them, but then it's going to be better for the consumer because it's going to be cheaper. You're going to be building an audience because they're there for the big hero. They get the trickle down for everybody else, and it ends up just, it looks so much better in the long run. It also just makes so much more sense. And I know with this proposed business model, they're going to be making less money on each particular issue that's sold. However, I think this makes it a lot more newcomer friendly, and you're going to end up making a lot more money based on the sheer number of issues that are going to be sold as compared to this niche market, which is only really advertising to people who are already fans of comics. I think there's a lot more potential money to be made. Or you could just like hold off on doing issue by issue and release the storyline as like a self-contained graphic novel. I think that makes a lot more sense. Having a book just feels better than having a floppy single issue. It also makes collecting them a hell of a lot easier. And although I'm not as familiar with how Shonen Jump does things, I'm pretty sure that I heard on the grapevine that Shonen Jump has everything they've ever made free for everyone, with the exception of the most recent 3 chapters of any given series. Don't quote me on that, I probably should have done my research beforehand, but manga is infinitely more popular in America than American comic books, and I think that they have a much better handle on their distribution method, which makes it more accessible for people. And I think that by making things free, and by definitely focusing on digital as much as I love my local comic shop, it just makes smarter business sense. Have I been rambling? Probably. I just don't understand how we live in a world where this costs the same as this, which costs the same as this. I think the American comic industry is very much up its own ass and unwilling to adapt with the times. They want to just keep on doing the business model that they've been doing for decades, even though everything else about the world has changed. You can't just be obsessed with the past and expect to still be making the same amount of money that you did ages ago. A long time ago, comic books used to be a lot more of a mainstream American pastime. But as the continuity has gotten more crazy, as the distribution has gotten more crazy, it's just been very difficult to attract new readers who aren't already reading this stuff. And yes, have I been rambling? Have I been thinking way too much about this? Most definitely. But this really bothers me. I spent so much of my life not reading comic books because I was intimidated by them. But whenever I was actually led into them, when I had somebody else to help me understand what the hell is going on with this stuff, to actually understand how this works, I ended up falling in love. I really do think that comic books are phenomenal. They are my favorite medium of all time now. And I really do think that everyone has the potential to enjoy comics, but the industry just makes it so difficult for anyone to actually get involved of their own volition without help. I think they need to change. I think they need to make it very clear that this is a new business model. They're going to make it newcomer friendly. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I don't have a script. I'm all over the place, and I'm just mad that this industry refuses to be better. So, yeah, I guess I'm just gonna cut it then. Single issues make no sense. It is a big problem with the comic book industry. I think trades are better. I think having a ensemble piece that was released bi-weekly, monthly, whatever, would make a lot of sense with a Batman, a Nightwing, a Batgirl, all in one book. I think it would make sense if you do the TKO route and release all the issues all at once. Just something other than what we're currently doing, because it is not working. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. The current comic book industry is literal insanity. It makes zero sense, and local comic shops are failing because of it. The medium is failing because of it. It doesn't make any sense why superheroes are some of the most popular things in all of pop culture at the moment, yet the source material is not getting any love. It just shows that nothing makes sense anymore, and I wish that the higher ups at, Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, they get their head out of their asses and make something change. Anyway, guys, I am very tired. I'm filming this at 12:11 a.m. because it's very loud outside during the day, and this is the only time that I have a little bit of peace and quiet to record on my set like this. So I'm just gonna finish my coffee, get to editing, and call it a night. But if you like this video, then why not consider subscribing or even watching another one? And if you liked this, whatever the hell kind of ramble rant that it was, then I would definitely recommend watching the video that I did on the problems with the comic book industry. The single issue format is only one of the many complaints that I have with this medium that I love so much. There is a lot more that the industry could be doing better, and I think I did a pretty decent job of detailing it in that one. But anyway, I hope you learned at least a little something new, and hopefully, I'll see you next time.